I think this is also very important that all our eminent panelists are there right on time. Normally, in all our energy forum discussions, we allow 5 minutes grace, but this grace is not required because all of you are there. Mostly we wait for our eminent speakers to come, whether it is webinar or this one. So last time you were out, both of you were out. I wanted both of you because this is an initiative we took. So just 1 minute on this initiative. We'll take very specific topics almost once a month and have this discussion right here. We have tried to finalize with the India International Center, and India Energy Exchange has been good to support this monthly discussion on specific issues. Last time we had on hydropower development in Northeast. Northeast was a good discussion that we had. So we'll keep. So today's discussion, today's point we chose on battery energy storage system, because this is a subject which has been always there. As we all of us know, battery we have seen from childhood. Battery is something which is not very new. And I was thinking there is nothing in renewable sector on technology-wise which is new. Only thing is time has come now. Time did not come because of cost, mostly, because of certain imperfections in maybe technology or safety or environment. But whatever you see, whether it is biogas or even solar is a vintage of 60s. Solar was there, but it remained unattractive because of the cost. So therefore, technology-wise, most of the things that we see in the renewable, most of the things, I will not say all, which have been there for not years, but definitely for decades. What has made them different now that they have come in the range of affordability, price-wise, not all of them, that process still continues. Many of the imperfections from the point of view of safety, from the point of view of applications, from the point of view of environment, one by one they are getting over, so their acceptability from these points of view are increasing. And that is also case of battery. Battery, of course, battery has been a lifestyle everywhere. From torch to, in our time, battery of radio used to be as big as this. You can't lift just like that. A child cannot lift the battery of a radio. Then transistor came, chota battery. On our watches we have battery, quartz battery and this battery, and that was the last. So battery is again known. So its applications were limited. Battery in the present context of energy transition, world over, has assumed a different dimension, as all of us know. And it is being seen as a substitute or as a support. And that has come primarily because of solar revolution. If solar was happening day and night, then again it will remain in the margin. Solar is not happening day and night, so its need is felt more badly and more intensely on a larger volume. Because solar, then what happens? If solar is going to, in terms of lakhs of gigawatt, then what happens when those lakhs of gigawatt are not available in the evening? So various support systems are being examined all over the world. It's not only for us. And in that context, different technologies of battery are being considered. Technologies from same points of view of safety, of environment, of cost, most importantly, so that it can be pump storage, another that is being thought very. So in India now, in a big way, in every state, pump storage projects are being investigated, studied, DPRs being created, and I think that number will be very large. But pump storage is a gestation period. The issue everywhere comes that if I adopt this in a big way, within a year's time something else will come. That is always the case. For people who are planning this, so there is a central city authority or corporations, for them this challenge is always there, that if I choose this. Even within solar, the modules that came, say 15 years back, their cost was different from what cost came later on. So module competing with module, computing with module. So therefore, in these areas, so much of changes are happening in technologies that one is not sure But does it mean that we don't decide? That is the point. Since the changes are happening, technology will change, and we go on waiting, then we never decide. That is also an issue to very dispassionately think. We wait, we wait. In government system, quite often that happens. Wait, something better is coming. What do we do? What do we do? So that point is there. 3 years back, also, like I said, battery was always in the reckoning, and battery was always in the focus. But 3 years back, we were not as bullish. 3 years back, we suddenly became bullish about hydrogen. And Sexaria deals with hydrogen. Once in a while, I will talk. NTPC, head of the R&D center, I will talk. Everybody, I will talk. Where are we, etc., etc. So therefore, there is a gap in knowledge also, and now that gap is reducing. But then, in every response that one gets, you do get that, yes, something better is coming. Something better is. Unfortunately or fortunately, China provides that answer, and then we keep waiting, and China. Recently, 1 week back, there a news item came that big loads, you use power, take those loads at a higher height, like you take water at higher height in reservoirs, and allow that weight to fall, and it will rotate the turbine. So there's nothing else needs to be done. You don't need this, you do need other alternatives also, but this is also an alternative. It could be sand, it could be stone, it could be steel. Raise this height, so that means that energy you are storing there. The whole daytime you are storing that energy there, and in the night time you are allowing it to fall, and that rotates the turbine. So this is the latest that I have heard on this. So therefore, alternative. Only thing is the cost. What will be the cost? So that is why I said let's talk about battery energy storage. All the people I know here, not in this hall, but in India and sometimes outside, I keep in touch with them. So a year back, we were not as bullish about battery as we are today. We were bullish about something else. Now, is it a fact? This is why I picked up battery in discussion. That is battery, has the battery come into the domain of a very serious consideration to be a very eminent alternative, eminent option in the evenings when solar is not there, or in the EV system. EV, in any case, it is inevitable. Is the cost in the affordable zone? Is safety aspect taken care of? Some of the things in Indian context, I will not say we totally lose sight, but then definitely we do not give as serious a consideration as they deserve. One, that we will take it, but then next step we find we are so much dependent on outside. So this is the time today of energy security, how much secure you are. If you create battery in a big way, and then you depend on all raw materials and everything. Now we are told we brought modules so long as we were in terms of 100,000 megawatt fine, but now we don't have this mineral, we don't have that mineral, because China is supposed to be, as reported, acquired all the minerals of almost all the minerals of the world, and we are in trouble. So therefore our cost becomes very high. So dependence on import, on manufacturing of the things that we want to do here is also an important thing. So in case of battery, has it really come into serious zone of consideration from the point of view of affordability and a right solution, a good solution, not total solution, but a reasonable solution for the size of and the scale of expansion that we are trying to do for the solar system. A. B, manufacturing, are we prepared to cope with that type of manufacturing? C, are there environmental implications in this? D, are there disposal implications in this? So even for modules, people are saying we are going whole hog on these modules, but when it gets into problem, we are not perhaps well prepared with the environmental implications. So these are some of the issues. I will come back again, but I will leave it to you. So should we start with you or with
whatever you say.
Ajay?
How many minutes?
Yeah.
How many minutes?
10, 15? We
Yeah.
can come back.
I like to
Maybe
be
10 minutes
I
to
like
start
to
with,
be
10
disciplined
minutes to
in
start
terms
with.
of time. The first point I'd like to make is that in the last 15, 20 years, we have seen technology moving at a speed that at least I had thought was just not possible. And even more so, costs have fallen dramatically. So we have seen the decline of costs in solar power. I mean, when the mission began, CERC had settled tariff at 17 rupees. With great difficulty, government decided that we'll go for bidding, competitive bidding. I was fortunately associated with that exercise, though I was not in the power ministry, but a matter of circumstances. So I had a major role in the design of the program. And I was the sole voice arguing for competitive bidding. Nobody else was willing to say it. And finally, many people told me when I succeeded that you have ruined the mission, the government will get a bad name, nothing will happen, nothing will come up. I said, well, we'll see. I mean, the ambition was 20,000 megawatts. We had only 100, 200 in 2010. I said, if there is failure, government can always change course. But I remember it was an uphill battle. But because we succeeded and we got competition going, the prices are 2.5 rupees a unit. But to be fair to the system, the real breakthrough in prices came because China succeeded in reducing the cost of production in a manner which was unimaginable. Though smart technology people were able to see that happening, so I remember in 2005, a German tech startup had a piece in a German magazine saying that in 2015 he expects grid parity to be achieved for solar power, and it was achieved in 2015. What India has been able to do is to get a competitive structure and competition and lots of players. And therefore, the cost of deployment, the cost of maintenance, etc., we have really become the best in the world as far as solar projects are concerned. Now, when the solar mission began, the document said that we will also produce solar panels in India. And the first year, the thing was the modules will be made in India. And the idea was we'll go to cells and full value addition. Now, government being working at cross purposes, our Commerce Ministry then suddenly took great objection that how could we decide this without consulting them. And then they became as virtuous as we are very often. So they said this is WTO incompatible. So I argued, okay, I mean, Boeing and Airbus have been to WTO many times on subsidies, but Airbus arrived and succeeded because the Europeans were willing to back manufacturing. But because of Commerce Ministry's insistence and caution in government, this domestic content issue was abandoned in subsequent tenders completely. My argument then was that if you continue with it, even if you lose in WTO, domestic manufacturing capacity would be there. Because it takes only 3-4 years to create capacity. So we lost a great opportunity. We are still struggling to get solar panels made in this country. I mean, with all the headlines, I am not yet seeing light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe that till you do the full value chain from polysilicon to the panel, you are only deluding yourself that I am doing it. And we are very good and very happy to delude ourselves that we are achieving big things when we are not. Now let us come to batteries. Now, from 2010 to now, the price of batteries has fallen by 90%. Now, 90% fall in prices. This was unimaginable. And as with solar panels, if the global demand doubles, costs have been coming down by about 20%. And on batteries, the view 4 or 5 years back was that these are lithium-ion batteries, lithium is limited on the planet, China has cornered everything, prices will go up very high, and so there's huge risk. And this concern was expressed not in terms of our discussion, which is grid level storage, it was all about EVs. And how seriously this concern was taken can be seen, and again, the Chinese are so smart. So Volkswagen and the Chinese government formed a joint venture to develop sodium-ion batteries and to make a car which will use sodium-ion batteries. And in 3 years, they succeeded. The sodium-ion batteries on the roads in Beijing. And this is the government and Volkswagen, not even a Chinese company, because the risk was too high. And Volkswagen thought that they are the largest in the world and they wanted to be prepared for the future. Now, the market surprised everybody. So lithium prices globally have fallen, and in a way which is unimaginable. And not only have they fallen, right now there is no concern about supply. Now, when we go back in history, the same fears were expressed about oil and gas. So ever since 6, 7 decades, every now and then there is great fear the world will run out of oil, world will run out of gas, all of it will become very expensive. But oil and gas become expensive not because there is a problem of supplies or exploration or reserves. They become expensive for geopolitical reasons. So we had the Ukraine war and sanctions on Russia, and these prices went up 5, 6 times. Now, in batteries, I believe that the market and competition in the market and the price factor are great drivers for positive development. So, lithium, which is here, lithium-ion batteries are now being used for grid level storage, and many people are bidding for these contracts in India. There are alternatives. Sodium-ion is one of them. I remember writing a piece on sodium-ion batteries saying that it is better suited for grid storage because sodium is abundantly available, there's no scarcity of supply. It's not good for cars and EVs because it's heavier. But for grid storage, neither weight is a concern nor space is a concern. But it is yet to come, though. I think our Reliance was forward-looking, and they did invest in a startup in UK on sodium-ion batteries. They were also forward-looking. They have invested in an American MIT startup called Ambri, which is developing molten metal battery. And the first 300 megawatt plant of that is under development. And if it works well, which is a question mark as of now, but if it works well, they claim that they are far cheaper, far better, and they are the solution for grid level storage. But as I said earlier, it's the market and the price which should determine what succeeds in the market. I think those of us who sit in government sometimes presume that we can decide and decide wisely. I mean, it doesn't quite work. Now, one of the recent initiatives of the government is the PLI scheme. Now, the PLI scheme has a design flaw, which I have no hesitation saying publicly. The design flaw is that I'm in a ministry, I will write an application, and I will decide that 10 people bid, these 3 are good enough. And I will give a subsidy. Now, so the person who escapes my time of bidding, or in the evaluation I make a mistake, or after I have evaluated he's got a better tie-up and so on and so forth, he can't get the benefit. So there's no level playing field under the PLI scheme for induction of technology cost reduction. So I believe that if we want production in the country and cost reduction, the template has to be what was there in this time, the solar mission, which is abandoned. That I will buy, and I will buy when modules are made in India, or cells are made in India, or the whole value chain is made in India for solar panels. Now, one of the things which happen is that you impose that bid, you don't get a bid because nobody is there to produce it. So the correct thing to do for that kind of bidding is to do what we do for power projects. Like we give a PPA, and then you go and build the plant and we'll buy 5, 6 years later. So the way to do that is that I invite a bid for the whole panel to be made in India or the battery to be made in India, 80% value addition. I will start buying from the year your plant gets commissioned. And I'll buy your full production for 5 years. So the investment is completely de-risked. In power project, the investment is de-risked because we'll say we buy the power for 25 years. So here you can say 5-10 years I'll buy. But we will not do it because the L1 price bid may be higher than the market price. Now, unless as a country we are prepared to pay that higher price, we will continue to be dependent on China in everything. I mean, not only batteries, solar panels, but you name it, they will be cheaper, and they'll be cheaper by a huge margin for years to come. So if as a country we want to manufacture, we have to be prepared that the price will be higher and we'll pay a higher price for domestic manufacturing. After all, why is Trump imposing all these tariffs? I mean, he appears eccentric and so on and so forth, but the underlying rationale is the same, that America has stopped manufacturing anything. So if we want to manufacture, he thinks 40% tariffs will give the price signal to the market and they'll manufacture. And his voters, who are the working class in the USA, are prepared to pay that high price because they've lost their jobs. They're very poor people today. Whole cities have been, they look like Khandar, jisko kehte hain, bilkul abandoned sites, because all the jobs went to China. So people in New York and Wall Street made a lot of money, and the American poor working class lost. I mean, their real wages today are lower than they were 30 years back. And which is why Trump is so popular. I mean, we think he's peculiar, but there is an underlying reason why he's successful. So coming to batteries, I would argue that if we want manufacturing in India, we have to take a deep breath and signal to the market that this is the volume for which we'll buy. And I would go further and say, invite a bid, say that I'll give you chief electricity, advanced environment clearance, this is my industrial park, and you do 80-90% value addition. Whenever your plant is ready, I'll buy, say, 1,000 megawatts per year or whatever is the minimum production size. Because then there is no risk in investment. And if it is competitive, as in the solar power side, we have 3, 4, 5 people emerging. So there's no problem of one firm becoming a monopoly supplier, as we have in synthetic man-made fiber, and keeping out all competition. And the market size in India is so large, and we have never tried to use that market size to our advantage, that the whole world will be here to give us technology, create joint ventures, create subsidiaries, and so on and so forth. Because the size of the market is so large. I mean, nothing is comparable. We, in our terms of our grid capacity, other than China and US, we are probably number 3 today, and growing very fast. Now, so on the production side, I'm very clear that if we want production, we have to say that we'll be inviting bids for, say, 1,000 or 2,000 megawatts every year. And whoever is L1, L2, L3 will get a few people in the market, and we'll buy all your production for 5-7 years. So the equity and debt is taken care of, and whatever the price, I'll pay. And if there is genuine competition, this price will go and keep getting lower. After, in the West, what has happened? A 90% reduction from 2010 to now. Now, coming away from the production side, the international consensus has been that renewables up to 40%, you need very little storage, and about 4 hours or something is good enough one cycle. But when that 40% goes to 80%, you really need many cycles of storage. And you were right in saying that in India, the need for storage is higher because we are dependent on solar. Wind in Europe is available round the clock, round the year. So Germany, I think, and I think if I'm not mistaken, last year had about 66% generation from renewables. UK had about 40%. And only now they have started trying to build up storage in a large scale, because with wind intermittent round the clock, you didn't need storage. But the need for storage was highlighted dramatically in Germany, when in one day, I think it's about 3-4 years back it happened, that renewable generation was going to be more than the demand next day, which was a nice, pleasant August day. So the cost of managing the grid for them was so much higher that they offered consumer hard cash to consume more electricity. I've never imagined in my life that somebody will say, consume more electricity and I'll give you money. But that is what the German system had to do, because the cost of managing the grid was so much higher. Now they are moving aggressively on storage. So now if we look at our situation, our renewable generation in terms of units is now crossing 10% and will grow very rapidly. And this 500 GW will come. So I think we need storage creation at a very rapid pace. And I'm glad that CA saw this, our ministry saw this, and there is the thrust on um, storage that should be there, and there was a VGF scheme also for battery storage. Result of that is that the tendered prices that we are getting in the last few months are amazingly low. I think it's 2.5 lakhs per megawatt hour for a month or something like that, for 1,000 capacity. So the price has fallen to a point where the system can easily absorb it, even without VGF. Now, the reason why I say it can absorb it is because when we look at this, we look at it in isolation rather than holistically. So one of the arguments that have been made over the last many years that solar is so cheap, 2.5, 3 rupees, but we are not taking its real cost because the real cost is very high and it's not so cheap. So what is that argument? That I have a long-term PP of thermal. When solar comes in, my thermal will back down. I still pay fixed charges, and therefore I have to take that cost into account. And similarly, transmission charges are there. Transmission has been waived. But today, if you have storage, then your thermal PLF can remain at 85-90%, while solar can keep coming intermittently. So our need for storage is there not only for storage of solar, but to get higher PLF from existing thermal. Now, when you look at it that way, then whatever are the battery costs, they are worthwhile. Because the alternative is building more storage, more thermal, and running it at much lower PLF, because as solar comes, it will remain on a must-run status. So I remember Chairman NTPC, the last one, telling me sometime months back, कि हम तो फिर will be down to 40% PLS in our new plants. So solar will come, it is cheap. But if you have enough battery storage, and the advantage battery storage that we can install tomorrow, because pump storage, I mean, I don't see the first plant being functioning before 2030, if we are lucky. But battery storage can fill the entire need starting next year. So my argument, the submission would be, DISCOMs have to see that we need storage far more than they are seeing today. So you are now guiding DISCOMs, so please persuade them that they must get storage the highest priority. And I think as a country, we are making a mistake in asking for round-the-clock supply of green power. Commercially, it doesn't make sense. Solar is cheap, storage is cheap. Why give the developer the burden of, arranging his renewable power supply for many years and then being able to supply you round-the-clock green electricity? And round-the-clock green electricity for a DISCOM makes no sense today, because the per capita emission of carbon is still very high and will remain very high for a long time. So if you had a different system whereby DISCOMs across India on a policy mandate said that somebody like me who wants to feel virtuous will get real-time carbon-free electricity on a different tariff, and I would choose for it and I'd gladly pay more, then automatically the price signal for creating storage gets created tomorrow. And then DISCOMs will see merit in creating storage for meeting this customer demand. And many Indian firms would like to get this kind of electricity to be able to claim for Europe, CBM, etc., that they are green on a net basis and not on a gross basis. And in parallel, I would argue that if you have got the DISCOMs committing to large-scale storage creation, then inviting bids for full production in India becomes feasible and makes sense. So I would end by two submissions. One, persuade DISCOMs to contract for battery storage in a very large scale, a multiple of whatever they are doing now. De-link it from round-the-clock supply as pure storage, and in parallel go in for manufacturing in India. Otherwise, it's to batteries, the story of solar panels will be repeated, is being repeated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. This gives a good background, but I would request Alok to also cover some of the points that I raised in the beginning, that if we have to go in a very big way on battery, is our manufacturing capability in terms of not skill, in terms of the raw materials, and the environmental aspects. These are some of the concerns that come up. Obviously, battery will come faster than pumped storage. There is no doubt about it. Pumped storage, you are right, will take minimum 5-6 years, maybe more. So battery will be faster. So we are talking in terms of something like 500 gigawatt by 2030, may not be by 2032-33. To support 500 gigawatt of solar, and battery is not, let us not say that battery is only meant for, battery is also there for EV. Battery is there for many other applications. So those applications also have to be catered to. So we are trying to also sort of transform our transportation system. And taking that into account, capability of India in terms of the raw materials, in terms of other factors, whether that type of thing can be coped with. That is another aspect that, so if we cover, in addition to whatever you had to cover, Alok, these points, that would be good.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I think Ajay Shankarji has covered most of the things I want, but I would like to add some maybe more data points, more perspective, and we make some more additional comments, as Mr. Shahi Saab has just mentioned. The topic of the debate is that it's a key player in the energy transition. So we all know one dimension, that is India is a solar story and it has a huge intermittency and variability. So battery is required. We have another dimension, the demand. Demand is growing. And for a moment, let us think what are the other options except solar and battery with us. Coal, we may be planning 100 gigawatt, but yearly additions are hardly 5 to 6 gigawatt. Nuclear, there is a pledge to have 100 gigawatt, but additions may be 2-3 gigawatt a year. We very well know our rate of addition in hydro, gas, or in PSP. So my main point is that for meeting the demand of India in, say, near term, solar plus battery is probably the only option we have with us. Battery has many concerns like the supply chains, environmental, import dependency and all. But why we are talking about battery now? The price decline, Ajay Shankar told us that 90% decline in around 15 years. So 60% decline has been in the last 24 months. So that is the major thing. The price decline has been very, very sharp because of very high extra capacity with China as compared to demand, and especially the demand from EV has been temporarily stagnating. The technology has improved. The number of cycles used to be 5,000, 6,000, but now it is crossing 12, 13,000 in a lifetime span, 10 to 12 years. And it has one more big quality, is the flexibility and modularity, which other storage don't have. So you are talking about the gravity and all. I don't think they can be set up in a distribution substation. Battery has a beauty that you can set up at co-location. You can set up in substitution of Ladakh line capacity. You can set up in a distribution substation. You can set up in a rooftop installation. So flexibility gives you a lot of handle about planning it most optimally. And the type of support it can give for ramp up, ramp down, the reserves and infrastructure optimization is very, very unique. Let us see where do you want to go and what is the chances of. The electricity plan says in 2032 we require 236 gigawatt hour. And where are we? We, India today, I think probably are less than 1 gigawatt hour. And we may have tendered around 50 gigawatt hour, but the chances are by December we will touch hardly 2.3 gigawatt hour. So ramping from this 1 or 2 gigawatt hour to 236 gigawatt hour by 2032 will be a very huge challenge. But we started in the ministry in 2022. It was, many people were surprised. We took up an initiative of setting up a 1000 megawatt hour battery in Rajasthan, which had some problem with CRC later on because of delays. This was one of the largest battery of the world at that size. And that brought a lot of good response, and it helped us to make the whole ecosystem of bidding guidelines and say the commercial models. People came and submitted their bid. Before I turn to the what we need to do, let me give you an example. You must have heard this Stellar model. Stellar model is the latest model with CA, which has the granularity that in a state, when you do the capacity expansion modeling, you can do up to 132 kV line. So you can go to that substation level, say loads, demands, and flows. For Madhya Pradesh, the modeling says that when you allow the batteries to be picked up, so by 2035, the coal capacity required comes down from 23 gigawatt to 16 gigawatt only. And solar goes up from 13 gigawatt to 25 gigawatt, what Ajay Shankar was saying. If you don't do the planning in a more granular manner, you add more coal, which is more expensive. And then you do what to do. It's a say turn down or turn up. And the results were that in this 10 years, the both costs put together, the capex and opex, will save for Madhya Pradesh 36,000 crores. So the writing is on the wall that other sources are very, very slow to come to meet the demand of India in a more cost-effective manner and in a greener manner, less coal, more solar. The battery is the candidate now. What needs to be done? First, I say planning. Planning every year, not one, because every year prices will decline and your cost economics will change every year. So the recommendation is that the state discoms and state systems have to be capable of planning at 132 bus level every year with revised battery costs, revised technology costs. Our regulatory systems have to recognize that. I visited this Reliance battery system, 20 megawatt hour, only 2 days ago. They told me the timeline they took to convince DRC and then to go for tendering. We need our regulatory systems which meets the needs of time to do the quick clearance, quick appreciation, and to support the initiatives. Tendering is also an issue. Like we are talking of ancillary services by batteries. That means upside and downside will be very quick. But in the battery tender, there is a resting period of 1 hour between the charge and discharge. Can you use that battery for ancillary services? No. So you need a different configuration, and maybe you need to talk to technology providers that for making a battery usable for ancillary services, you need to reduce this resting period, or you do 3 modules, 2 modules for arbitrage, 1 module for ancillary service. But ancillary service module has to change the charging to discharging very quickly. Not 1 hour is not available. Other battery is no more good for ancillary services. There are large number of examples where PSAs are delayed, tenders are cancelled. I think my colleague will tell. That is what the investor confidence is not coming. So we need push to timely tendering and timely award of contracts also. I think the rate of cancellation in tenders floated by SECI and other REIs is the highest in case of battery storage. A lot of cancellations are happening. Supply chains are, my view is little radical. You can't ride 2 horses. If you want to expand, I think you worry little about the indigenization. We have to depend on imports for I think next 2, 3, 4 years while we do. So we can't make 2 objectives. If you wait for local capacity to come, China took 20 years to come to this stage of electric vehicles, which we are looking for now. So this, we have to make a choice. Either ramp up battery to meet the 2032 targets, or we start domestic. We have to do a mix. So supply chain, we are told by the markets that there is ample surplus capacity in the world now, and supply will not be a problem. I think let us take one objective at a time. Top objective is the ramp up battery, expand battery, and while do some VGF and support the domestic manufacturing, like Mr. Ajay Shankar has just now told. So there are three barriers I feel. Our market framework is not conducive to ramping of battery system. Battery is an investment which is for 12 years. We don't know when the CRC will come and put a market cap, which will be there for 3 years. Your whole modeling for cost and arbitrage will go haywire. So our markets have to be more predictable. Say, if there is a market cap, under what circumstances and as per what rules it will come. Secondly, as I've been writing, I've been saying CRC has been very, very slow in bringing the capacity contracts. Australia promoted battery by giving capacity payments to them for 4 hours. That's why it succeeded. India will, no meaningful storage investment will come in India without our proper development of electricity markets in terms of capacity payments and in terms of a predictable market price signal. Our ancillary service market is also is not doing well. I talked to the Reliance people who have set up battery. He says, sir, I don't know the demand from the system operator of ancillary service even for 2 days in advance. Who will set up a battery for you to do ancillary service? When we were talking to system grid operator, Mr. Baba is here, system operator is not prepared to give a projected demand for ancillary service even for a quarter in advance. No, we have to change, we have to commit. If you want good reliable supply, you have to commit for ancillary services quite in advance so that investors are clear that, oh, this is a demand coming, then I will set up my battery plants. Taxation is another pain point, sir. We pay 18% tax on purchase of battery. And if it is a service model, you again pay 18% on providing service through battery. So you are talking of bringing on cost, but your taxation, battery should be, as long as there is not much capacity, battery should not be taxed at 18 plus 18%. So these are the real barriers which are hindering the business models around battery in India. I have one last barrier which to my mind is the capability of the SLDC personnel to use battery. Sir, ideally, as you are saying, the FDR is not a good contract for DISCOM. It is not. But if you have procured battery for 4 hours, who is the best person to operate battery? It is a system operator. Like PSPs have been operated across the world by system operators. They know that when it is required best, they will schedule it. Our system, our SLDC personnel are not equipped. We need to give them training for, say, how to use battery for efficient and reliable system operation. Sir, apart from battery supply and all, the two things which we require is, first is better DISCOM viability. It's a difficult task we are doing because storage is best procured by DISCOMs. But investors think twice before going to DISCOMs. They want a tender with SECI, but SECI's tender are not being taken up by DISCOMs. So this is one big elephant in the room, that DISCOM viability is a prerequisite. And sir, before we invest batteries and additional capex and environmental issues, we should not forget the very good low-hanging fruit of the time of debt tariffs. Why don't you push demand from non-solar to solar hours? So it will avoid a lot of costs, a lot of environmental footprint of battery disposals, and it will also bring down costs. So I think when we talk of this key player, I think you say battery is one of the key players. Another key player in the transition is the shifting demand to time of day tariffs, sir. About your concerns, sir, about the environmental disposal, sir, we should be concerned, but I think we are hyper concerned, sir. We are talking so much of disposal of solar modules in India, whereas China is deploying 10 times more solar capacity every year. So the technology will come. The recycling technologies are coming. So I think this whole hyper concern about disposal should not make us say, make us think twice that no, I think we should go whole hog with the solar. India has the best resource, solar and storage. We are working and we should work more on the recycling technology, sir. So disposal means all these important critical minerals can be recycled to a large extent. We are reading in technical papers that to 80–90% recovery is possible. So most of the material which is going to batteries is recyclable. So I will close by saying that India in the next 4–5 years doesn't have any option to meet its, say, renewable targets and its demand except by deploying solar and battery. It has been demonstrated that if you do the modeling properly and deploy battery in different stages in the power system, it is going to be highly cost effective. We need to work with regulators, we need to work with DISCOMs, and we need to work with the system operators. So I will stop it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Suksharia? Then we will have another round. That is, Alok has to go at 4. You are coming back again?
Yeah, I'll come, sir.
Okay. Let's listen to him for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Shahiji. Privileged to be in this forum of so much of wisdom on the sector. Just a small introduction I'll give for myself because many of you may not be knowing. So I joined Adani Group around 1.5 years back as CEO for the green hydrogen plans. Last year, around 10 months back, I was also made the CEO for battery energy storage system. While this was coincidental, it's almost philosophical that these two technologies are linked, and I'll speak why. And earlier, some of you may know, I was also the group CEO of ACME, which is where, along with renewables, I was in charge of hydrogen and set up the first pilot plant in India and the first large-scale plant we started in Oman when I was ACME, it's under construction. So what has been my, I absolutely knew nothing about BESS beyond general reading till around a year back. And that was also to my advantage because in the group we had stalwarts and we had stop-start approach on battery multiple times we discussed. And so much so that there was almost a view that we are opinionated as a group, our company is opinionated that battery cannot happen. And my not knowing too much about the sector probably someone coming objectively was why I was handed over. So what have I done in 1 year and what insights I can bring from the industry perspective on battery? So in 1 year, of course, now I have a team of more than 100 members. I've visited, and me and my team have visited at least 12 global scale manufacturing plants, at least 3 lithium mines, and at least 20 projects which are either operational or under construction. We have set up one small pilot project already. Of course, we have not made too much of announcements about it. And the most interesting, while it is not in public, but you will be happy to know, Alok ji just mentioned that 1000 megawatt hour plant they announced. World's largest battery storage plant is in California. It was set up in 3 stages. I think it's 3200 megawatt hour. So right now, as we speak, we are setting up a 3600 megawatt hour plant. This is not in plans. This is construction is on. If I'm able to cross all my regulatory hurdles, the first commissioning should happen by end of this year, and the full commissioning by March next year. So what is the approach we talk? What are my learnings? I'm not wise enough to give any policy related guidance. I'll just speak about my learnings, some of the new learning and some of the myths which were broken. First of all, there is a lot of talk about the value chain. कि इसमें पैसा लगता कितना है, कितना हम import करते हैं, कितना खुद कर सकते हैं, So let us just break that very simple. The numbers are not that complicated. So when we say BESS, battery energy storage system, it comprises of 4 critical elements. First is simple battery, which actually comes in the form of container. So we'll break that container a bit later. Then of course you have your PCS or inverters, something we as a country know reasonably well about. You then have medium voltage transformers, lots of cables, AC, DC cable interconnections we know about. And there is another interesting beast called BMS stroke EMS, right? BMS stands for battery management system and EMS stands for energy management system. Energy management system in one or the other form as a country we have been developing, and we have super skills in India, so much so that a lot of Indian large multinationals do work on EMS, which is kind of bordering on the mix of both the hardware and the software. It happens out of India, so India is second to none, but that's the heart of the whole system. You can have a very strong system, but if you don't program it well, it will always be suboptimal and you will not get bang for the buck there. There is another thing, BMS, which is part of the battery system. So आज की तारीख में if I do a मोटा मोटा हिसाब, I'll say the battery prices are measured in dollar per kilowatt hour. जैसे डॉलर पर बैरल होता है उसका, so kilowatt hour, not kilowatt, unlike our traditional power system. So आज की तारीख में a full system should cost me roughly $120 per kilowatt hour.
Per kilowatt?
Hour का कैपेसिटी का कॉस्ट पूरा. उसमें से straight away roughly $80 is for the battery part, the container I talked about. बाकी $40 is for the transformer, the PCS, the cables, the construction contract, right? To start with ab initio, 1/3 of the value is by its very nature likely to be in India, right? Most of these capacities are in there. फिर हम आते हैं $80 के कंटेनर में आते हैं. एक्चुअली कंटेनर होता है $65-70 का. $80 इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ कि रफली 10 to 15% की ओवरलोडिंग करनी पड़ती है. सो सिंपली लेट्स टेक 80 फॉर सिंप्लिसिटी. $80 के अंदर दो कॉस्ट होते हैं मेन. एक होता है सेल. सेल इज समथिंग सिमिलर टू व्हाट वी गेट इन आवर मोबाइल फोन, दैट बैटरी पीस दैट वी से, उसका लार्जर वर्जन वी कॉल इट सेल. एंड बैलेंस इज द बैलेंस ऑफ आइटम्स विच गोज इनटू द स्टोरेज आइटम. तो सेल पे बाद में आता हूँ. जो बैलेंस आइटम है विच इज रफली 40% ऑफ द कॉस्ट ऑफ दिस $80. व्हाट डज दैट मीन? पहले वो बैटरी, उसके पैनल बनाना, उसके रैक्स बनाना, उसके एयर कंडीशनिंग सिस्टम लगाना, उसके अंदर कंटेनर में डालना, सेफ्टी सिस्टम डालना, उसका जो लेबर मटेरियल, ये सब काम मिला के रफली 40% ऑफ द 80 इज ऑन व्हाट इज कॉल्ड नॉन सेल रिलेटेड कॉस्ट, राइट?
But that is essential, no?
That is essential, but the good news is उसके अंदर मेटल है और बाकी चीज़ें लग रहा है, उसका फेरस फॉस्फेट बाकी चीज़ें लगती है. तो ये 600 ग्राम चाहता है. यू कैन लिटरली ऐड ऑल द मिनरल्स एंड आज का आप कॉस्टिंग करके यू कैन वर्कआउट कि हाउ कम दिस $40-50 का पर किलोवाट आवर का सेल आता है. सो इट इज़ एक्चुअली नॉट दैट कॉम्प्लेक्स ए टेक्नोलॉजी दैट वी एक्चुअली थिंक, राइट? बट आई टेल यू वेयर द डिफरेंस इज. उसकी जो रेसिपी है, जैसे खाने में रेसिपी होती है कि सब बना रहे हैं, लेकिन जिसने वो रेसिपी परफेक्ट कर ली वो परफेक्ट है. इन वॉट प्रोपोर्शन, वॉट हीट ट्रीटमेंट, हाउ मच क्यूरिंग टाइम टू बी गिवन, how much, that is where we have gone from this technological improvement of 5,000 cycles to 8,000 cycles to 12,000 cycles, right? That is where, what is the additives you add, how do you reduce the heat loss. तो ये जो recipe है, this unfortunately I can, and regrettably I say, is not fungible. It is not something where we can just buy off the shelf. It is not something which can happen overnight. It has taken decades for China, and we must appreciate the effort they did. And this is where the second learning came ki, so if you take this, basically 80% value, 60 to 70% value add in the whole system is up for taking, right? Which is the path of least resistance, as we call in electricity. हमको, मतलब my personal view is कि that is what we should be doing, rather than directly attacking the advanced chemistry thinking we can do. अभी ये advanced chemistry की भी एक interesting cycle which can be learning for us. The lithium ion, it is, see, we are all familiar with lead acid batteries. हमारी गाड़ियों में लगता था, we all knew, right? ये lithium ion is not a very old thing. It is only in early 90s. Lithium ion was the electrolyte का जो lithium है जो आ जाएगा इलेक्ट्रोसो कैथोड से एनोड उसके लिए बना था. That was first discovered in Japan. सोनी कंपनी ने फर्स्ट अनवेल किया था. उन्होंने लिथियम आयन बनाया, लेकिन जो इसकी टेक्नोलॉजी जो नाम सुनते हैं आप लोगों ने, वर्ड सुनोगे LFP, NCM, वो टेक्नोलॉजी होती है एक्चुअली कैथोड की टेक्नोलॉजी. एनोड तो पुअर चैप कार्बन होता है जो कहीं पे भी बनता है. तो जो उस समय उन्होंने कैथोड बनाया, उन्होंने NCM करके मेटलर्जी बनाई, निकल कैडमियम मैंगनीज. उन्होंने उसका एक प्रोपोर्शन बनाया और उससे उन्होंने बनाया. इतने साल तक ये बैटरी चलती गई. दैट वाज अ बेटर केमिस्ट्री, क्योंकि उसका एनर्जी डेंसिटी बेटर था. उसके बाद ये टेक्नोलॉजी कॉपी की जापान से, कोरिया ने, और ये चली गई. एंड LG, सैमसंग्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड स्टार्टेड. सो अर्ली 2000s में इन लोगों ने, इसलिए यू वुड हैव स्टार्टेड हियरिंग देयर नेम्स, उन्होंने स्टार्ट किया. एंड 2010 में इन लोगों को डर लग गया कि चाइना विल स्टार्ट कॉपिंग दिस टेक्नोलॉजी. सो दे बिकेम वेरी वेरी पर्टिकुलर अबाउट दैट दिस टेक्नोलॉजी डजंट फ्लो टू चाइना. बट उसी समय एक इन्फीरियर टेक्नोलॉजी थी LFP, लिथियम फेरस फॉस्फेट, जो कैथोड बनता है जिसका, विच इज अराउंड 15% लेस एनर्जी डेंस देन NCM. तो चाइनीज़ को जब पता चला कि NCM नहीं मिल रहा, तो इन्होंने 12 साल पहले 2010-12 में इनकी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में इन्होंने काम स्टार्ट किया LFP पे। ये 10 साल 8 साल की मेहनत है। मैं एटलीस्ट 6 फाउंडर से मिला हूँ, मैं 12 कंपनी के प्रमोटर से मिला जो कॉलेज से निकले हुए हैं, कहीं से पढ़ के आए हैं। करते 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 परफेक्ट करते करते इन्होंने निकाला। 2016-17 में इनका ब्रेक थ्रू आना शुरू हुआ LFP में। वो टेक्नोलॉजी को धीरे धीरे परफेक्ट करते हुए वो स्टेज पे आए कि दे आर नाउ सो मच लीडर्स कि नॉर्मली चाइना इज नेवर अ टेक्नोलॉजी लीडर, दे आर अडॉप्टर एंड समवन हू स्केल्स अप। बैटरी के अंदर आई कैन टेल यू, आई हैव इन्वेस्टिगेटेड ऑलमोस्ट ऑल मेजर यूरोपियन कंपनीज, US कंपनीज, दे कम फॉर बाइंग फॉर अस, इवन द वंस यू नेम्ड जो रिलायंस ने खरीदी वगैरह है। नन ऑफ देम आर even 1.5 generations close to what China has come in this, right? Last month I was in China along. I also took my chairman. We visited CATL, which is the Apple of this vector. You know, they have 25,000 people on R&D of battery. 1,10,000 लोग हैं, 25,000 लोग उनके पास R&D के, 5,000 लोग PhDs हैं और दिन के 17 पेटेंट्स फाइल कर रहे हैं. So I am not saying that, see, one is getting overawed and saying what we can do. I think let's fight a battle which is easy. Our strength is our market, as someone said, and that is where. And Chinese companies, to my surprise, whatever we may think of them, they are very very keen to tie up with Indians. See, they are apolitical in the sense, a normal Chinese doesn't understand all this politics. So they are probably, they realize, they think India is where China was 25 years back. They also think India can be a shortcut to the West if China is allowed. So I personally think if the relations politically improve and we facilitate, they will be more than happy to do JVs in India. तो ये जो बाकी 40% वैल्यू एड बचा, उसका 20% भी क्या पता हम यहाँ पे आ जाए जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग रिलेटेड है, एकदम कोर टेक्नोलॉजी इमीडिएटली ना भी आए तो. सो दिस इज फर्स्ट मिथ मेकिंग आई वांटेड टू टेल यू. सेकेंड चीज़ ये सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग है, हम लिथियम की, वी टॉक अबाउट लिथियम इन दिस, यू विल बी सरप्राइज टू नो द कॉस्ट इन दिस $120 ऑफ लिथियम इज ओनली $6 टुडे. So of such a critical thing, $6 is critical. But someone said कि the price doesn't matter, नमक भी तो सस्ता आता है लेकिन नमक बिना खाना नहीं बन सकता. So that risk is there. But lithium per se going too high is very unlikely. And someone said the prices have come down. So yes, technology improved. Till 2022, when Ukraine war happened, lithium carbonate cost was $70,000 per ton. वो आज की तारीख में if you see an exchange is $9,000 per ton. So cost have predominantly come down because of lithium, and there are still mines which are closing because they are not productive. If you have read this week's Economist, they will say there is a very unique dilemma. Lithium prices are also coming and demand is going up, which is something which is a kind of an anomaly. So this is about some of the chain aspects that we spoke about. So my submission as a developer would be, as a country and as developers, we need to be clear what are we solving for. Are we solving for energy requirement? Are we solving for energy security? Are we solving for energy transition? Or are we solving for manufacturing? I think once we get that equation completely right, if we assume we are solving for our energy security and energy transition as well and energy requirement, then probably manufacturing, a bits of manufacturing will have to take a back seat, right? उसके ऊपर ना फिर मैंने कैलकुलेशन किया. One of the things which I was told when I joined the energy sector कि 20% इलेक्ट्रिक होता है, 80% other forms of energy है. The other theme we are trying to transition is electrification of energy. सब जब मैंने dollar to dollar energy compare किया, even if we import batteries and even if we import solar modules because they repeatedly produce, and you do a dollar to dollar comparison, $1 of foreign exchange given for renewable energy actually replaces $3 of oil that we would import over 25-year cycle, right? So even if you were to take analytically, just take a banya mindset and start working out, it will work. So my suggestion, I was also in the meeting with power minister, we were called, I said, sir, what probably we are doing mistake. I see a lot of players कच्ची पक्की टेक्नोलॉजी पकड़ के बोल रहे हैं बस आप ये ड्यूटी लगा दो, ये कर दो, कल से हम बनाना शुरू कर देंगे. व्हाट वी आर डूइंग, व्हाट आई एम डूइंग, मैंने मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के गाइज ऑलरेडी हायर कर लिए हैं. ओवर द नेक्स्ट 2-3 years in the process of procuring from China, setting up projects. My guys are in China, even I speak 12 guys are in China. उनकी कंपनीज में बैठे हैं, उनके QA/QC के बहाने सीख रहे हैं उनके सिस्टम क्या है, सप्लाई चेन क्या है. एंड मे बी 2 years 3 years डाउन द लाइन व्हेन वी हैव सेट अप सम ऑफ दिस प्रोजेक्ट. आज तो 1000 मेगावाट भी नहीं है. आई थिंक द लार्जेस्ट प्लांट इज 200 MWh इन इंडिया. So I think we cannot put cart ahead of the horse, as they colloquially call it. So first step should be large scale adoption of batteries because the prices have already come below the parity levels. I'll give that numbers also. And we should immediately deploy large scale. The lead time is not more than 10 to 12 months is the first thing. Second thing is regulations. The sector is moving so fast that regulations need to evolve. I'll give you few examples कि भाई कहाँ regulatory unclarity आती है. जैसे अभी कल पर लास्ट वीक एक पॉलिसी आई कि कोलोकेट कर दिया जाए, तो हमने बोला ठीक है हम सोलर प्लांट को कोलोकेट कर देते हैं, वी कोलोकेटेड BESS अलॉन्ग विद इट। फिर उसका नेक्स्ट सर्कुलर आया कि कोलोकेट करो, खरीदो भी वहाँ से, राइट। एंड आई वाज आर्ग्यूइंग दैट देयर कैन बी अ सोलर प्लांट, देयर कुड बी अ बैटरी प्लांट, they can be co-located, your purpose of using the grid is used, you are not additionally adding grid, but why should they be commercially married? This guy can take power from somewhere and this guy can supply, it's end of the day Kirchhoff law will apply and the power will not flow, right? So lot of things फिर किसी ने लगा दिया कि बैटरी स्टोरेज के अंदर ट्रांसमिशन फ्री है, लेकिन नाइट का ड्रॉ करोगे तो चार्ज लग जाएगा, इवन दिन के लिए लग जाएगा। सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज द सेक्टर इज मूविंग सो फास्ट and that we need to keep clearing, and but I must be very honest that I see a very open mind when we bring the issues, and it's not take it or leave it, your way the highway approach. So one of the reasons I came, I had meeting with the CA in the morning, I'll also be meeting CRC. पहले तो झा साहब होते थे, मैं एक्मे में था तो उनके पास जाता था, अब मिल के उनको भी ये सब चीज़ें बताऊंगा, बट आई थिंक रेगुलेशंस नीड टू कीप पीस। वन इशू दैट वी आर गोइंग टू कन्फ्रंट वेरी सून, आई थिंक आलोक सर के टाइम पे इन्होंने एक क्लैरिटी, एक बार टेम्परेरली इन्होंने बैटरी को जनरेटर का स्टेटस दे दिया फॉर द पर्पस जिससे कोई लाइसेंसिंग की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं हो। फॉर वन क्वेश्चन दैट रेगुलेटर्स विल बी हैव टू सॉल्व, इज बैटरी अ स्टैटिक डिवाइस और इट इज अ पावर प्रोड्यूसर, राइट? द फर्स्ट instinct would be it's a static device, but then you start understanding the engineering and the science behind it. So in a normal power plant, you give fuel, there is some wastage and you produce electricity energy. And what do we do in batteries? We give electricity, treat that as fuel, it converts into chemical energy, you lose some energy in the process, 15%, and you again convert it into power. So by no stretch of imagination, if I think it should be any different from a generator just because the piece doesn't move. So does the solar panel, it doesn't move. So I think that's the next regulatory challenge, and we are not late. This is a debate happening even in US, in FERC and other regulatory agencies. How should we treat it? Should it be treated like a transformer or should we treat it as a generator? Because that will have implications on how we treat this project. So regulatory clarity is the third thing which I think is very important. And finally, because I represent a commercial company, what are the commercial models which will work? You know, again, the global debate is, should batteries be very different from normal power production? That is one debate. It's a similar debate to what we have, should insurance के साथ income plans mix होने चाहिए, income separate होना चाहिए, or should it be separate? We have both the examples. UK, for example, Europe has adopted completely service driven approach, but then there are US जहाँ पे अलग अलग states के अलग अलग rules है, they have a slightly mixed approach on this. So business models इसमें evolve हो रहे हैं. I think for next few years, the first plant that I am setting up, because you may not have heard of it because we never bid for any tender. We are taking on a complete merchant risk on that plant, and we have and it may come off, it may not come off, I don't know, but my promoter has taken a complete merchant risk on that plant that we will completely use the trading route to that. The second dilemma would be in business model, what are we doing peak shaving? Are we doing ancillary services? Unfortunately, we have probably not realized the importance of battery as a provider of ancillary services like grid stabilization, frequency controls. यूरोप में तो बैटरी लगी इसलिए थी. It was the storage as a concept for secondary purpose. How do you stabilize the grid? So we don't have enough incentives for people to set up for this reason. So that part of the equation also I think we need to evolve and solve. But though I am conflicted because I am representing BESS and it's in my interest that BESS actually takes off. But I generally think BESS something can be deployed in a short run time. Capacities are available. I don't necessarily think the cost will go down that drastically. The BESS is available because the major heavy lifting in terms of cost reduction has happened. You know, we have come to a level you can commoditize most of the costs. So some changes, तो 20-30% आगे पीछे हो सकता है, but
What's the cost now per kilowatt hour?
सर बैटरी का कॉस्ट मैं बता,
Cost per kilowatt hour.
नहीं पूरे सिस्टम का $120 है, लेकिन बैटरी का आप $70-80 की
Capex.
कैपेक्स ही बता रहा हूँ मैं उसको उसमें भी कन्वर्ट कर देता हूँ सर, इसका रुपी
सर स्टोरेज कॉस्ट नहीं,
It delivers power.
मैं समझ गया सर आपकी बात. जो स्टोरेज कॉस्ट है, 2 घंटे की स्टोरेज कॉस्ट की जो पर यूनिट कॉस्ट आती है वो करीब ₹3 विदाउट VGS सर. और अगर 4 घंटे करेंगे तो लगभग 5 क्रॉस कर जाता है.
No, sir. It is five rupees. 3 rupees comes with the solar hybrid. If you solar hybrid means you add with the solar, increase the cost of 250. Solar price is also increased when the solar hour. They means they will give the 3 rupees 20 paisa 20 paisa.
हाँ साहब, मैं जो कह रहा हूँ ना आपसे अभी
No,
सुनिए
have
झा साहब, अभी एनवीएन का टेंडर हुआ है, 2.17 लाख पर मंथ पर मेगावाट निकला है. स्टैंड अलोन है, सोलर से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है.
2.5 लाख
उसको आप कन्वर्ट कीजिए, VGF के साथ है तो करीब ₹2.20 आता है, VGF हटा 30%, 3 आएगा। इसका स्टोरेज से कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है। अगर आप 4 घंटे करेंगे तो अभी केरला ने किया था, केरला ने VGF के साथ किया था 4 घंटे का, उनका कॉस्ट करीब 4.5 लाख रुपीस पर मेगावाट पर मंथ है, उनका 4 घंटे का है। तो करीब ₹3 है जो कि विदाउट VGF 2 घंटे का स्टोरेज, और 4 घंटे का स्टोरेज जो है वो लगभग 5-5.5 रुपये। बाकी यू कैन
नहीं, आई थिंक दो चीज़ें हैं। आपका जो लेटेस्ट टेंडर प्राइस आप बोल रहे हो वो नंबर से, योर नंबर इज राइट, 3-3.5 रुपये आता है। आवर एस्टिमेशन बेस्ड ऑन आवर कॉस्ट, हमने उस पर भी मेरा एक व्यू है, लेकिन मैं कहूँगा कि सिंगल साइकिल राउंड 3.25 से 4 रुपये आता है हमारे हिसाब से। तो स्टोरेज एडर, तो अगर आपका अगर ₹2.5 का सोलर है तो 4 रुपये ऐड कर दो, ठीक है, शाम के लिए। और अगर आप इसको ये इस
₹2 का सोलर अगर फ्री मिल रहा है,
हाँ, अगर फ्री, ये स्टोरेज एडर कहते हैं, वर्ड वी यूज स्टोरेज एडर।
तो वो फ्री मिल रहा है, तो ये ₹4
हाँ, 4-4.5 के आसपास ही आता है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन कुछ और चीज़ें मैटर करती हैं। तो इसमें इसका जो एक क्वेश्चन आता है कि थर्मल पावर के कॉस्ट भी ऑल नो कि अब 6-7 रुपया चला गया पर यूनिट। तो दिन में अगर 30% सोलर है जो ₹2.5 में मिल रही है, और बाकी टाइम हम कंप्लीटली डिस्पैचेबल बनाना चाहिए थे, हाँ, तब ऐड करोगे तो ये भी उसी रेट से थोड़ा कम ही है। हाँ, बट स्टोरेज एड इज बिटवीन 4 to 5 रुपीज़ इन कितने साइकिल, वो सब ऐड करके एक साइकिल का, 1 से 2 का साइकिल का 25% का इम्पैक्ट आता है,
If you add the cost of solar power, then it is
अराउंड 6 to 7 रुपीज़।
6 to 7 rupees.
राइट, बट इसमें एक चीज़ इंपॉर्टेंट है। इसमें मेरा एक जो इंडस्ट्री का मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है कि मैं काफ़ी लोगों से बात भी करता हूँ, आप इन प्लेयर्स के नाम भी देखिए जो जीते हैं, कि इंडिया में क्या एक एटीट्यूड बन गया है, कुछ भी बिड कर लो, ले लो, हम कर तो देंगे, या फिर गवर्नमेंट हमको हेल्प कर देगी। सो मेरा एक पर्सनल व्यू है कि लॉट ऑफ दिस प्लेयर्स हु हैव गॉन वेरी एग्रेसिव, और जब वो फिर सामान लेने जा रहे हैं तो इसमें ना ये इट्स अ स्लाइटली मोर टेक्निकल प्रोडक्ट दैट वी अंडरस्टैंड। केमिस्ट्री में पता नहीं चलता, यू डोंट सी, केमिस्ट्री डजंट बिहेव linearly. So I personally hope that some of the people are more diligent in what they buy, and they don't compromise the last 10-20% in price, because that will come heavy. So that is why this range is there. But yeah, broadly this is so these are some of the points I just wanted to tell you. As an industry, I am completely bullish on it. I think it's a good option for India, especially it enables more of solar to be integrated in the grid. It also solves a lot of grid problem. And last thing जो बहुत हमारी problem होती थी कि ISTS हम सिर्फ 30% यूज़ कर रहे हैं. Lot of these ISTS lines which renewable parents don't even pay, and they are only using 30-40% of the time. With grid you can with BESS co-located you can bring to 70-80% time. तो ₹1 पावर का तो आपका रफली वहीं से निकल जाता है. तो I think that's a specific opportunity specific to India, then we can suddenly start optimally utilizing a lot of this ISTS network. So these are some of the points, at least from my experience, I can tell.
you want to add anything? Any point which
It was just a minor clarification. Alok had said something. So the rational approach should be, and after hearing you also, that we go aggressively for battery installation, create the market, and let it be fully imported, partially imported, we shouldn't care. The other thing is the kind of breakup he indicated. So 60-70% of the value addition can be prescribed comfortably.
In steps.
In steps. So the route forward will be that in consultation with the industry, in steps it should be done. And for the very difficult part, which cannot be done incrementally, we today decide and invite a bid, वो plant 30 में लगे तो 30 से बाद हम 6 साल पूरा खरीद लेंगे. तो जो डिफिकल्ट पार्ट है वो भी आ जाए. आज हम फैसला करें, बट ये नहीं फैसला करें कि जब तक वो नहीं आएगा कुछ नहीं करेंगे. So that is the holistic approach which will give us the breakthrough that we should have. That's the only clarification I want to do.
Sir, actually when question of battery comes, sir, actually problem is solar hour, non-solar hours. If we consider 12 hours for solar, then we have the problem of 12 hours, how to meet the power. Naturally, we want to meet the entire power through battery, it is not. Sir. Battery is best suited for the short duration, peak saving, these are the things. Then we have to consider other type of storage also, or the thermal gas is the must, or nuclear. Thermal is not nuclear. And naturally, sir, to maintain, we have to see what is the requirement at say 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. There, how much thermal is necessary, we have to keep in the bar. If that bar, we can use the battery for that. Instead of increasing the PLF, what I say, maintain the thermal power at the bar to be available after the 6-7 hours. That is more important. Naturally, sir, after that we can do. Secondly, sir, today the issue battery why comes, sir? If you put the battery at the source, like where solar is there, like at the park, the only additional 60 paisa, we suppose the 250 paisa is the solar energy, then 300 rupees, 10 paisa is 60 paisa increases, and then the battery of 4 hours comes. So what is the advantage of putting there itself? People say that put it the load center, but I will say you put it there. Our transmission, today transmission we are drawing the lot of large transmission system to evacuate power from Khavra, etc. They are just empty, idle after 6 hours. Technical problem there, operational problem there. Better to keep the battery there. The ministry have put the guideline, put the 2 gigawatt. I am saying why not to fully? It should be the must that you come along with the solar, etc. Only price will increase by 60 paisa. A 4-hour supply additional comes. That is about. Then, as peak saving, here what is that? That we can put it here. This load center that save the demand side, etc. Thirdly, sir, I fully agree with Mr. Rajat that we are pressing. When I was the CEO, lot of duty was coming on the solar, etc., increasing the cost. So one thing that power is the raw material for entire industry. Should we improve the manufacturing to increase the cost of raw material in the entire industry of the country, or should we, if it is available at the cheaper rate of battery, so why to give so much costly? Okay, we should improve we should increase our capability, etc. But we should think of today battery is available. We should go for there, and this is the simple way. SECI should go for both together. If solar comes, it should come along with the battery. Without solar, no tender. Without battery, no tender. That we should go for that. As third thing, Mr. Rajat, the regulatory, battery is the generator. It has been considered long back. It is generator. We can put anywhere. It can evacuate. You can draw free of cost. You can then supply free of cost. That's why everything is clear in the regulation. I don't think any change has been. If change are done, I don't know. But in GNA, this is very clarified that it is as a generator.
I listened to various remarks with interest. I've learned a lot today. One of the things that I am thinking about is why should we always give the storage liability or responsibility to the generator or the DISCOM? Today, all of us have inverters at home. We get a charge from the grid, and we have it for our safety to prevent us from vagaries of load shedding, power cuts. The capital cost that went into it, we are not bothered, it's gone. How much are we paying for the electricity that is going to charging the batteries? We don't really bother. There are so many people today in India with open access and captive renewable power. They've all gone in for that. Wouldn't we also give a system of incentives to those industrial and commercial consumers? If they want to install a battery system, if they have the place or space, let them have it. And discussion was, if the solar costs you 2 rupees 50 paisa, 3 rupees, and the cost of storage is 4 rupees, 7 rupees if it is still cheaper than the grid power, why can't consumers have it? This is one thing probably we can think of or discuss further. The second, everybody talks about battery, PSP, everything. How is it we are never considering the possibility of solar thermal heat storage that can be combined with solar photovoltaic? I mean, when you invite tenders, say that 200 megawatts of PV and 100 megawatts of solar thermal, which will generate the heat, store it in molten salt, and continue later in the evenings. This is another technology which is happening in other countries. China is doing it. I mean, we have to say China, because generally our interest is kindled. I mean, Europe, it's been there for some time. US, it's been there. So let us look at the solar thermal heat storage and electricity generation. These are three things. solar thermal, not necessarily confined to PV alone. They can supply PV during the daytime, and evening they supply solar thermal power almost at the same rate. Let them do the economics and wait and I mean, that's one thing.
May I add to this? Concentrated solar thermal technology has matured.
Mature.
With molten salt, you can store the heat and use it to run a conventional turbine. First round of tender mein, one concentrated solar thermal was installed. Some people got the contract, didn't put up, but one is running 50 megawatts and he's very happy. His maintenance free, is making a lot of money at 12 rupees a unit. Now, the molten salt technology has matured, and Dubai has commissioned, I think, last year a plant where the daytime solar panel supply and evening stored electricity running a conventional thermal turbine.
What's the price per power?
7 cents.
7 cents.
Right.
So 6 rupees.
Round the clock supply.
So I have 3-4
So,
points.
so I think as a country we are very late. I think no harm done in inviting a few bids of 50 megawatts, kar lijiye na, 20 megawatt, and see what the market is. And the full utilization of the idle transmission capacity is taken care of. And all the existing plants where solar panels have been put up, developers will easily put up concentrated solar thermal, provided there is separate bid for it.
Yeah.
So may I raise? So one point is that I have read somewhere that the 90% of the raw material for manufacture of batteries is still imported. So is there any clarification on this one? Number two, is the cost is an issue. And number three, the kilowatt hour degradation of the batteries with time is always there. The batteries in the cars, what they have been declared, they do not give that output. And recently I was traveling by an EV car, and the battery gave way, although it was showing in the indication that 40% battery is there. But it halted, and I asked the driver. Driver says, all our cars, this was BSES cars, they have a lot of this thing. They say all our cars are behaving in this manner only. What is declared is not is being given by the batteries. So is there a degradation of the kilowatt hour of the batteries with time? That must be taken into account before we decide that it is 25 years or 12 years or 15 years. It will not give that much of service. Then another point is that the cost comparisons which we make, they are not fair because lots of subsidies are involved somewhere, some subsidy, something is there, transmission is waving off, etc. So we must also make a fair comparison because someone else pays for transmission, that cost becomes expensive. So it is not, we always compare, the grid level battery or something like that. It is not so. So one study should also be made.
I'm answer to 2-3 questions, technical question. So, sir, you are absolutely right. Even I have EV car. I also say I also observed it shows certain availability. It is not there. So 70-80% of the time, the problem is actually not necessarily the battery, the BMS system of the battery. In the battery में उसका एक cell balancing होता है, process होना चाहिए. तो globally, not in India, other countries. So that is why I was mentioning BMS, which is kind of a software.
पर वो part तो है ना उसका जो भी.
हाँ, so वो मैं बता रहा हूँ कि वो एक हाँ. दूसरी चीज उसमें बता रहा हूँ क्या होने वाला है. That also I'll tell you. Inherently, batteries have degradation year on year, like solar voltaic cells also have it, right? So when we say this is the cost, there is a degradation curve which every technical supplier gives, which you have bought from a good supplier. They also stand behind with a guarantee with that. So when I said कि ये कुछ लोग बिड कर देते हैं और देख नहीं रहे हैं, तो वहाँ पे वो केमिस्ट्री आप समझोगे नहीं, वो सब. So ये जो 4 या 5 रुपये हम बात कर रहे थे, that takes into account कि there would be a degradation usually 7-8-10 हज़ार साइकिल के बाद वो 12 साल में होता है, तो that is taken into account. The system of BMS and all that has significantly improved, especially in grid scale, large reputed players. But वो recalibration करना पड़ता है. But fundamentally, I agree with your sense. One risk that we all have in battery system that we don't have an operating history of 10-12 years. इवन चाइना में भी नहीं, उसमें भी 4 साल से लगा हुआ है. So we are all presuming what is said in the guarantees and the theoretical papers will hold good. If suddenly after 5 years they start dropping, that is a risk we are actually, that's a medium level risk in the sector. I remember when we started with solar voltaic cells in 2010, पहले प्लांट्स लगे तब भी यही रिस्क आ रहा था कि भई ये 25 साल चलेंगे ही नहीं चलेंगे, हमको क्या पता है 8 साल के बाद क्या हो जाएगा. Fortunately by and large solar PV के अंदर that risks have not come good. So कुछ 2-4% केसेस को छोड़ दे तो if I have tracked modules which I bought in 2010-11, so largely they are following the pattern, so that is not a big risk, it has not turned out. Battery में that risk is still to be crystallized whether आता है कि नहीं, so that risk is there, that I agree, but right now we are presuming companies with good R&D and track record probably will not ensure that this risk doesn't happen.
But BMS system displays the pre-calculated values rather than the measured value.
सर एक्चुअली एक अच्छा BMS सिस्टम में क्या होता है, ये जैसे बैटरी का कंटेनर बनता है उसमें 5000 सेल्स लगते हैं, हर सेल लेवल पे उसको इनपुट लेता है. दिस इज अ सिंपल थिंग, सीरीज एंड पैरेलल कॉम्बिनेशन होता है. तो इट्स लाइक ए वीकेस्ट चेन. इट हैज व्हेन जब चार्ज हो रहा है तो उसको इंश्योर करने की एवरीथिंग इज इन बैलेंस, जब डिस्चार्ज हो रहा है तो अगेन इट हैज टू इंश्योर एवरीथिंग इज इन बैलेंस. सो इट शुड कंटिन्यूसली रिकैलिब्रेट, राइट. सो वो सॉफ्टवेयर ही उसकी परफॉर्मेंस को इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है. इट मे नॉट बी एन हार्डवेयर इशू नेसेसरी 60-70% ऑफ द टाइम्स. दैट इज वेयर perfection still has to happen on that. And BMS I am more hopeful because end of the day it's a software analytical product which can also happen in India if there are some startups who are working on that.
Now, for battery manufacturing, what percentage of material is imported?
See, वो पूरा जो एक
Indigenous, I'm talking.
नहीं आज की तारीख में तो पूरा कंटेनर ही चाइना से आ रहा है इम्पोर्टेड. एंड लेट मी जस्ट पुट अ नेम टू अ कंट्री, लेट्स नॉट फूल आवरसेल्व्स वैसे ही कोई और कंट्री है. तो पूरा का पूरा पूरे सिस्टम का 60-70% कॉस्ट बैटरी में है. वो जो 60-70% है दैट इज ए गुड सिस्टम इज ओनली कमिंग फ्रॉम चाइना. बट व्हाट आई एम टेलिंग इज आउट ऑफ दैट 60-70% ऑलमोस्ट 40-50% वैल्यू आर लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट्स, जो उसको हम सेल टू कंटेनर बनाने वाला जो चीज़ मैं बता रहा हूँ, दैट कैन हैपन ओवर नेक्स्ट 3 to 4 years. इंडिया में हो सकता है, उसमें कोई वैसी दोज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स आर डन इन इंडिया ऑलरेडी. ईवी इंडस्ट्री, कार इंडस्ट्री, ऑटोमोबाइल, दैट एक्सपर्टीज इज देयर इन इंडिया. Not only for India, actually we can also be a potential export hub for that because we may be more competitive or similar compared to China in that part. What I don't think there is any shortcut for, we need to have a 5-year, 10-year plan as sir was saying, is for the cell which is roughly 30-40% of the overall cost of the system. That is where deep chemistry is involved, advanced understanding is involved. This is not something which we can have a shortcut.
I have one small issue. Now, solar concentrated thermal, you are using molten salt as a storage for the thermal. One way we are using for battery as a storage. How these two systems compare cost wise actually? Can the solar concentrated thermal will come up as a more suitable way?
Sir, मेरे को
So 6 to 7 rupees is expected.
Evolve with deployment. So in any sector, a general rule is that very difficult for somebody to project costs in industry which is just rising. Now he is right that in battery storage, maybe the costs have reached as low as they could, and maybe some 5-10% होगा. जैसे solar panel में nobody expects कि ₹2.5 का ₹1.5 होगा. I mean, solar panel में वो जो 2.5 बाई है वही रहेगा. नहीं किसका कॉन्सेंट्रेट सोलर की बात कर रहे हैं, थर्मल
Not concentrated solar.
सोलर थर्मल जो 2010 सोलर मिशन में टेंडर हुआ था तो 4-6 लोगों ने बिड किया, बड़े लोग लगन नहीं लगा पाए बिकॉज दे डिडंट हैव द प्रॉपर टाइम. बट एक छोटा प्लेयर है आई थिंक तमिलनाडु में, आंध्रा में, उसकी 50 मेगावाट की यूनिट बड़ी अच्छी चल रही, बहुत खुश है, और ₹12 उसकी बिड प्राइस थी 2010 के टेंडर. You wanted to say something?
I just
comment?
wanted to say that there is a very big cost difference of concentrated solar power, solar energy versus battery energy. Very big cost difference. And right now, because the complete technology of steam turbine itself is different. Every day we cannot expect the turbine will be shut off and then started. So the complete technology is also different. So that actually adds to the cost. And in Dubai, 7 cents maybe because to what extent there can be some quasi-subsidies in a Gulf nation, which may not be applicable for a country like India. Sir, I had 2-3 issues, because I understood this is a debate. So, from my side, we are actually talking of battery energy storage as energy transition, but actually it is not energy transition; it is energy security, which is actually throwing energy security and not energy transition. Energy transition is gradually shifting from, say, conventional energy to non-conventional sources of energy. Sir, one of the views that was expressed was that there are two races. One is the race for adding capacity, and the other is the race to indigenize the sources. So, those two races cannot go together. Why not? Because then only the country will benefit. And more so, which we have seen recently in the solar industry, that the land border sharing country, when it was transitioning from one technology, that was monoperc, to the other technology, which is basically TOPCon and higher technology. Sorry, it was transitioning from multicrystalline to monoperc and then higher technology. We found that gradually their facilities, they were shutting down and they were putting up new facilities, and the transition cost was percolated throughout the world. And in India, the prices of PV modules, which were actually hovering somewhere around 15 to 16 rupee per watt peak, touched even 29 to 30 rupee per watt peak. And the more we depend on international sources, this kind of problem will come. And the only way out is not only what sir said was R&D is a very big thing, okay. But when we put indigenous sources or we source from indigenous manufacturers, then we have to stick with those manufacturers over a period of time. We just cannot keep, okay, now this technology has come, let us adopt this technology. So whoever has put up the facilities of the earlier technology, you gradually phase it out. But instead of gradual, it is just, I don't want this, I want this. So this thing has to come up in a big way, and government has to think about this. Second thing, what I wanted to say was that the foreign manufacturers or the people who are sitting in foreign country, especially land border sharing, and they supply us products and services, they are not willing to support their products and services with the requisite guarantees in the form of financial instruments. We have seen that these land border sharing countries, they don't give bank guarantees or any such kind of financial instrument with which they can be bound to the kind of contracts that in India they are applicable. A private developer can really go in and take some kind of risk, can do the self-EPC and mitigate that risk to a large extent. But when it comes to government developers, where they try to pass on much of the risk to the EPC contractors and then to the manufacturers, if the manufacturer support does not come, then it's hard on the government developers, and both of them have to survive. So this is one of the aspects which we have to look at. One of the there is a SCO conference which is taking place. So we also suggested that in this, one of the methods that has to come out is some kind of government support on the financial instrument which can be used as a trading, which can be traded or which can be given across the border, so that we can tell that, okay, this instrument can be used as a financial security.
Okay.
So this is my submission.
All right, any other?
So one,
Yeah.
How is international solar alliance can impact in future? How is international solar alliance can impact in future our energy security?
sir, Can I? One point. It's. May I ask a question? Like we are talking about is about the energy transition. So, what is the future of hydrogen fuel cell as a storage battery for the for transition? We need to have some systems which are different. So, since you are an expert on hydrogen, yeah, he is the right person. So, I thought I must ask you. No, I sit on the both the asset and the liability side of this question. So, see, like, I'll give you. I started in hydrogen in 2019, and he knows me when we were in ACME together. We first large plant in Oman also we are putting in. और एक जो हमारा सोलर थर्मल फेल हो गया था बीकानेर के अंदर, जो हमने उसी लैंड पे हमने हाइड्रोजन का पायलट प्लांट लगाया था एक्मे में. सर अभी जिस तरीके से हाइड्रोजन वाज कंपीटिंग प्रैक्टिकल विथ इलेक्ट्रिकल ऑप्शंस, राइट. सो वी आर हियरिंग हाइड्रोजन कार्स आएगी या इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स आएगी. सो दैट रेस अनफॉर्चुनेटली हैज़ बीन वॉन. There cannot be, the jury is out on that. So we are not going to see any significant traction on hydrogen cars. It will only be EVs. So that race is over for all practical. So only fuel cell batteries as a storage. हाँ, so वही जिस reason से hydrogen cars fail हो गई, क्योंकि उसमें practically fuel cell use होता, that reason actually applies to other areas where hydrogen fuel cell would have applied, right? Only frontier where there is some debate still pending is long distance commercial transportation. Can hydrogen be viable or not? But increasingly by the day, the way batteries is evolving, even that race I think is as good as over. So hydrogen for a transport fuel, I don't think is going to be use case of hydrogen. I'm not saying that hydrogen story is over. Hydrogen is going to be adopted significantly in marine transport. Some real developments have happened on that, ammonia ke form mein, methanol ke form mein, yeah, even in some refineries. But hydrogen use case for either personal vehicles or even commercial vehicles, I think technology wise कोई problem नहीं थी, but the commercial race has been decided is what I feel. I'm just taking a very strong view, but that's what my view is. Visiting so many countries, talking to so many players, and even do the economics by my own team. So that's the unfortunate reality right now.
Yeah, just quickly want to bring in market perspective also. I represent Indian Energy Exchange. So we are seeing one trend very clearly. Last 3 years, because of reasons known to us, a lot of solar capacity got commissioned in the country, which has resulted into huge surplus on the market side also. Every day we are getting 30,000-40,000 megawatt of cell availability during the daytime. Demand is very feeble, very low. It is only 10,000-15,000 megawatt, which means there is so much excess power available, which is resulting into lower prices. So if I share numbers, average price for solar hours in FY24 was 4 rupees 61 paisa, which reduced to 349 last year, and this year in Q1, we are already closed Q1, it is 2 rupees 36 paisa. Now, there is a steep fall. This is much more than what we anticipated some time back. It is coming down drastically. And this is not taking reference from the system marginal cost. So if you look at the system marginal cost of the country as a whole, which is nothing but true reflection of the highest cost which is there in the system, it is not coming down so drastically. It is only solar which is coming down. It is falling and pulling the market prices down. Now, earlier we have been debating, is there a case for creation of merchant solar plants in the country? Now, the numbers are showing there is no case. If it has come down to this level, probably this will go to 1 rupee also and 0 also in times to come. Now, if there is no case for solar merchant plant, for the same reason, there is a very strong case for arbitrage, battery arbitrage. So battery arbitrage means we sell at the highest price. And one more thing here, last 3 years, the number of time blocks when we are hitting 10 rupee in the evening, that has only increased. Now, if I go by what Mr. Rajat has said, $120 the battery cost. Now there are different financial models available. We have adopted one with a decent return on equity of 15% and degradation factor of 2.5%. All those things taking into consideration, cost works out to be 3 rupees 42 paisa per unit. Now, if I calculate, and it's a theoretical thing, let's say I have a battery plant available and it is a 2-cycle, 2-hour plant. A cycle can be anything. It is 2-hour battery storage. Now, I am theoretically injecting in the market and buying cheapest from the market. Let's assume there is an auto bidder solution, which means that cheapest power will be bought, at highest price it will be sold. But I will run 2 hours, 2 cycle. Now 2 hours, 2 cycle theoretical realization in FY24 would have been 2 rupee 96 paisa. FY25 it increased to 3 rupees 61 paisa. Now 361 if I compare it with 342 is a decent place, which means 15% sort of return on equity can be taken from the market, and which makes a commercial case for creation of battery storage. So that's one thing, and going forward we have reasons to believe arbitrage is likely to increase. It will not go down. Probably we will have a new market segment where we will have a different cap for battery storage. 10 rupee would not be there, then there could be higher cap. Even today there is HP DAM market available where you can sell battery storage energy up to 20 rupees. The market is not liquid and hence it is not happening, but tomorrow it can happen. So there are many, I would say directionally there are so many trends which are available, which makes a case for creation of arbitrage basis commercial plant. Just one last point I want to mention on, somebody mentioned that why this is battery is not a key player in energy transition. One more example I'll share. What we have witnessed last year in the month of November. November is one month, you all agree with me, in the year where the demand is the least in the country. There is no winter demand, there is no summer demand, no humid weather, no air conditioning, nothing. And even in the month of November, evening 5 to 6, prices were hitting 10 rupees. Round the clock basis, there was no dearth of energy. There was enough energy available, too much energy for every time block. But when you are backing down solar during certain hours, and when you try to ramp it up in the evening hour, there is a small window available where there is a pressure on the prices. There is suddenly requirement, and till the time you ramp up for 1 hour, little more than 1 hour, it is hitting 10 rupees. So if you have something like BESS, it is going to help us. It is smoothen the curve. The variability which we are seeing, the price is going down during the solar hours, increasing in the evening hour, that smoothing will happen. And with this smoothing, the volatility in the market will go down, realization probably will improve, and things what we have seen in November would not be there, particularly in many winter months, and this probably will help in energy transition. Thank you.
One small point I'd like to add here is, all the calculations that we have talked so far have taken the transmission cost to be zero, that ISTS is exempted. Once the transmission cost is imposed, after, I think the present was increased up to 27, 28. Once that is not available, all the calculations will go haywire.
That is what my point was. Any other point? Let's try to sum up.
One last thought I had.
Yes.
I'm K.K. Roy Chaudhary. I request Mr. Sekhsare to highlight on assurance of lithium, as you all are trying to forecast the future for enhancing energy transition by exploring energy storage system through such means. What is the assurance of lithium itself?
So that's a very important question. So cost of lithium is not very high, but assurance of lithium is the market. There is lithium, unfortunately, cobalt is only in one country, Congo, for example, right? Lithium is not in one country. Lithium is in Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Australia, Ukraine, Middle East में भी मिल रहा है. So, and even China has it. Apparently, India may also have it. We have not done the level of prospecting. We should be doing it. So, yeah. So, as of now, if you ask most experts, and we may be wrong, जो मैं बाकी लोगों से बात करता हूँ, in the transition, availability of lithium को they don't flag as a high risk. They say low or at best a medium risk. तो अभी फिलहाल तो काफ़ी सारी, in fact, as a company, we keep getting so many proposals where they are asking us to take position in mine. Right? We don't understand enough as a group yet, so we have not taken position. So next step could be either for private player or as a country that we go and start taking positions in lithium mine. They are not very expensive, to be honest, right? So we can use our international channels and so do it. So yeah, that could be one of the geopolitical strategic hedges we want to build into our overall effort that we are putting. So, and it's a good time to buy because lithium prices are very low, so mines are also available at quite cheap.
Also given lithium mining is highly unenvironment friendly.
ये मैं एक्सपर्ट नहीं हूँ, मेरे को जो मेरी टीम ने ब्रीफ किया था, जो मैंने सुना था, एनवायरनमेंट फ्रेंडली इसलिए बोलते हैं कि उसकी वॉशिंग में बहुत सारा वाटर लगता है. नहीं, बट उस वाटर को जब आप ओवरऑल सेंस ऑफ प्रोपोर्शन बनाओगे देन दैट विल नॉट बी वेरी लार्ज क्वांटिटी. जैसे हाइड्रोजन के लिए भी लोग बोलते थे बहुत पानी लगता है, क्योंकि पानी से तो हाइड्रोजन तोड़ोगे, लेकिन उसको आप सारा ऐड करके देखोगे तो इट इज़ लाइक हमने कैलकुलेट किया था, जो इंदिरा गांधी नहर बहती है उसका 1% वाटर भी ना यूज़ हो. So it on the face of it looks very large, but we start going the numbers, maybe it is not that risk. I'm not an expert, so my general reading के basis पे बता रहा हूँ, but yes, that's something needs to be investigated.
Just one thing, sir. But still we have an import dependency, though the price is less and it is available, but we are subject to import dependency and being the all geopolitical conditions. So, I mean, it's subject to that risk.
It is certainly subject to that risk. It's import dependency, and the only thing we can kind of say it's import dependency not for India alone, fully Europe, full US. You would be surprised to know even Tesla, which we associate with EV, as of now imports its cells from China, right? So unfortunately, this is the story in mineral after mineral. So that risk is there for India, that risk is there for the world, and but yeah, if we have a 10-year plan, how do we slowly migrate that? Then that risk can be avoided. But overnight to avoid, I don't think if we just say we put a lot of taxation, it will be the capacity can come overnight in India. We need a full 5-year, 10-year plan for the chemistry part of it.
Can't we think of this retrieving from the waste that was?
Yeah, that is true.
That is
so ये आप सही बोल रहे हैं. I think पहले भी क्वेश्चन आया था. Fortunately, waste recovery of lithium and other critical mineral from battery is a reasonably good industry which इंडिया में भी कुछ अच्छी कंपनी काम कर रही है. मतलब इसका एग्जांपल देना, $10,000 पे लिथियम कार्बोनेट मिलता है, रिकवरी का कॉस्ट $20,000 से $25,000 है. लेकिन अभी आयरोनिकली प्रॉब्लम ये हो रही है रिकवरी इंडस्ट्री का, दे डोंट हैव इनफ बैटरी टू रिकवर फ्रॉम, क्योंकि अभी इतना नया है कि वो क्रिटिकल मास नहीं आया है. बट 5 to 10 years में जब क्रिटिकल मास ये जब आएगा, देन दिस इज अ वेरी आफ्टर पॉइंट इट विल बिकम सेल्फ सस्टेनिंग. आप हो सकता है 20-30 साल में ना उसी को रिकवर करके आप चलते रहोगे.
Seriously, we have to think of that to reduce the.
Yeah, that I think is the area we should start working now, because that we are not late as a country.
Sir, small question from Adani. There was a news item that you have generated green hydrogen from battery, not from the grid. What is the cost likely of that?
आइटम मेरे एक प्लांट का ही था, तो एक हमने पायलट प्रोजेक्ट किया था जिसमें हमने इलेक्ट्रोलाइजर लगाया ऑफ ग्रिड.
हाँ.
6 मेगावाट का पीछे सोलर प्लांट था, ऑफ ग्रिड था, और उसके साथ में हमने 2 मेगावाट आवर की बैटरी लगाई थी. वी जस्ट वांटेड टू सी कंप्लीटली आइलैंडेड ऑफ ग्रिड सोल्यूशन कैसे चल रहा है. तो दैट वाज मोर फॉर टेक्निकल टेस्टिंग. वो एक्चुअली हमने 4-5 महीने पहले कर लिया था, तो उसमें काफ़ी डेटा जनरेट हो रहा है. सो वो एक कमर्शियल स्केल प्लांट नहीं था, इसलिए कमर्शियल प्राइस में नहीं कह सकता, लेकिन टेक्निकली वी वर एबल टू रन इट कम्प्लीटली ऑफ ग्रिड. सो उसमें एक ग्रिड फॉर्मिंग इन्वर्टर्स भी लगाए थे हमने सारी. बेसिकली इट वाज एन एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन. सो वी आर गोइंग टू एक्सटेंड दैट एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन. जिससे व्हेन वी डू लार्जर प्लांट्स कैन वी डू इट इन अ कंप्लीटली ऑफ ग्रिड मोड इज व्हाट.
The electrolyzer was indigenous.
Electrolyzer was not completely indigenous.
So, one clarification. Adani Green and Adani Green Hydrogen, they are two different enterprises, or?
नहीं, ये थोड़ा कन्फ्यूजन मैं भी अपने आप को पूछता हूँ क्योंकि अडानी में हमारे वक्त हमने लीगल एंटिटीज तो बहुत बनाई हुई है, लेकिन वी वर्क फंजिबली. अडानी ग्रीन इज अवर रिन्यूएबल पावर आर्म, राइट. जो हाइड्रोजन है वो अडानी न्यू इंडस्ट्री, एक और हमारी एंटिटी उसका पार्ट है.
It's independent of Adani.
इंडिपेंडेंट, मतलब मदर कंपनी सेम है, बट इट्स अ डिफरेंट लीगल एंटिटी. उसी में बैटरी भी उसी में लगेगी.
Sir, I mean, 2 points, sir. Whenever we talk about this, I always say the same thing. One is the personal training, and we have to give adequate importance whenever a policy document gets prepared. The people, I mean, the training of the personnel at the DISCOM level, and that has to be very highlighted, sir. And the TOD tariff also, sir. Mostly, I mean, that if that is there, many of these viabilities things can be really gets worked out by itself.
All right, then let's try to sum up. We have the plan to get our capacity to cross almost 900 gigawatt by maybe 2032, maybe a little later than 2032. And definitely we also have planned to have 500 gigawatt of solar and maybe some other renewables being put together. The whole issue of storage storage was always an issue. We used to have storage hydro projects, we used to have run-of-the-river hydro projects we are having. So storage, it's not that earlier we had a smooth curve. We never had a smooth curve. In evenings, our load is something, in the dead of night, the load is something. So management of grid had that aspect to take care all the time. And now, what is different is that dimension of this gap. Suddenly, imagine 500 gigawatt of solar in 2030 plus or 32 plus is not available in the evening. How do we manage this the whole system? So what has emerged today, and it was always the case with power sector, energy sector, that you cannot have one solution. And definitely India is also not trying only one solution. Right now, parallelly, the country is going in a big way on pumped storage, in a very big way. And as rightly observed by some of our friends, it has its own gestation. It can be 5 years, it can be 7 years, and so on. So therefore, that is one formula, one solution that you have. But then it has an advantage of longevity, that its capex get neutralized, then its price over a period of time reduces. And my solution to hydro project, and not only to PSP, is backloading of tariff so that everything is in long-term financing. So therefore, it is not that pumped storage will be relevant. It is not that large hydro projects in a storage system will be relevant. And in one of my papers, I have written that every run-of-the-river hydro project is also storage. If you take your problem in the evening, any hydro project has the flexibility of generating less and more, depending on, because you have a pondage with each of the hydro projects associated. So therefore, partly that is also a solution. Today we discussed in a big way, battery has emerged. Battery was always in the mind. It has been a little off consideration in the past because of excessive cost. Now it appears a lot of research is done in various countries, in China and other countries. It has been found that it has come in the realm of acceptability. Even if it is about 7 rupees per kilowatt hour and you get, let's say, 2 rupees 50 paise or 2 rupees of solar, then you are getting somewhere, even if you load the cost of solar power to have this battery into operation. Then we also discussed about solar thermal, though some questions were raised about operational problems. But then that is also a solution. Perhaps certain degree of perfections can be brought about, the solutions can be found out. Hydrogen is for the present off, but for certain uses of energy, hydrogen is not also off. The point was made, and right in the beginning I also made that point of environment as also import dependence. But what reassures us when Rajat says that in the total cost structure of battery, this lithium is a small portion. Second point that you made, import dependence, and he, in his presentations also he made, and again to clarify your question, this is something which is available in many countries, not in 1 or 2 countries. In a dozen countries, lithium is available. So therefore, there will be some degree of competition among those countries that will, if it was 1 or 2 countries, you could say that they could dictate on price. But then if it is many countries, you can have some consideration. But just as it has happened in case of module manufacturing in India, when Adani started manufacturing modules, 70% was imported and only 30% was domestic. Now the proportion is just almost reverse. About 40%, 35% is import and balance is domestic. So I think This process will also always be there, like Alok made that point, Ajay also made that point, that if you do not have, I mean, we are not making a case not to have a solution. If we have 500 gigawatt of solar, we got to have a solution. And there will not be a solution which will not have some problem. So we'll have to make a balance. And obviously, battery ranking stands high in the sense that it is faster. I am also associated with some of the pumped storage projects in certain capacity, but it is really going to take time. It is not that easy. In fact, even for investigation, the type of laws that we have in our country on forest clearance, even for investigation, forest department people make it very difficult. So it takes time to even prepare a detailed project report. So therefore you will have, this is something where gestation period is about a year and a half. So therefore this is a quicker solution. And a point was made that in energy transition, and particularly from the point of view of backup in the name of storage, you cannot have a very long-term policy disregarding what is going to happen in the future on the technological changes. This is not to say that contractual arrangement will forget about the arrangement that has been made. Today also, we have solar power being sold at about 14 rupees. The project that was set up, let's say in 2010 or 12, and solar power being sold at 2 rupees 50 paise. And so also in thermal, you have varying. So therefore, we have learned to live with this type of situation, that when you make a contract arrangement, that contract arrangement is for that contract, and it policy demands, expectation demands, good behavior demands, and even so-called, tariff you used to call, that you give a feed-in tariff. Regulatory commissions were empowered on wind to provide feed-in tariff. And the feed-in tariff was varying. When wind power was 5 rupees, they said in that range. When wind power, some technological changes, some capacity changes happened, then it came down to as low as 3 rupees or 3 rupees 25 paise. So all these PPAs exist and transactions exist. So I think that behavior or that sort of understanding is very much there in the power sector. Very much will depend. One thing is very clear, technically, if that understanding and that maturity comes in the mind of developers, generation is license free. License free. People can take a risk. You don't need license. And it has been clarified that all that we have talked, whether it is pumped storage or it is your battery, there would be organizations, and I would expect that there would be organizations which would have matured to a point that some of them will take a bold step to go ahead. Because DISCOMs, I don't expect a very bold behavior on their part, because their financial condition is not so good, and they are afraid, they are government controlled, they are afraid that why did you sign an agreement at 7 rupees when after 6 months it became 6 rupees. So that type of questions often come by vigilance and others. So there will be there. So I think taking advantage of the fact that Electricity Act provides that generation is free. Today, a cement plant is not done on PPA. Someday that situation should emerge in power sector. The steel plant is not done on the basis of purchase agreement. Someday that situation should emerge slowly and slowly. I would feel there will be some developers who will take advantage of that situation. And I also believe they will be benefited in the long run. Those who are early takers in this, they definitely will be benefited. That type of emergence I'm seeing, some of the steps being taken, researches are also being taken. So therefore, we don't have to say that this is bad or this is good. Question is, we used to have, living in the power sector for now more than 50 years, I have always learned to say that every option is there for power. India is far behind at around 1400 kilowatt hour per head per year. We have to go a long way. Therefore, we cannot afford this type of a debate, whether we do this or we do that. I mean, if battery storage is good, it does not mean PSP is bad. It doesn't even mean the thermal storage is bad. Whatever works, there could be champions who will see to it that the problems that are associated, as was pointed out, with the thermal storage system, that should be resolved. That definitely should be. Well, as a concept, it is there. After all, that energy, solar energy, we are trying to do, and then in a conventional way, we are trying to produce power, just as you are producing power in a typical thermal power station. So I think definitely that system should also be given a good trial. Good luck to Adani Group on the battery storage. You have taken a lead. As you said, that for the present, you are setting up something which is the largest in the country, and that should be there in about a year's time. So that when it happens, then the level of confidence will definitely increase. We have to have a voice not of contradicting and conflicting type, because it creates a lot of doubts and suspicions in the minds of financiers. If you find so many holes here and there will be holes definitely. There is no solution which will have no problem. If you find so many holes and here and there, they will be scared and nothing will happen. Of course, our major problem continues to set right our distribution system. There also we are trying to find out, and something has started moving. Regulatory Commission, a point was made, will have to be quite alert. Regulatory Commission, we have in our group the vertical chairman on regulatory transmission, Mr. Indusekhar Jha, having worked in transmission, having worked in powers, NTPC, and having worked so long in the regulatory system. Definitely, I think they will have to be quite alive to the changing requirement of time, and provide through the forum of regulators a sort of direction, but not a forum, but not this as a way of giving instruction, but a consensus. And I'm happy that they keep meeting quite often, and therefore state regulators as well as central regulators should be alive to the sense of timing. Because now the days of 4 years of thermal power and 8 to 10 years of hydropower gone. If our decision making, if a decision is taken, then SECI or anybody decides, order is placed, work moves. If it is delayed by 1 year, then by that time new technology has come. And if you see the chain reaction, then you will never take a decision. A new technology has come, you ask the chap to retender, he retenders, again he comes to a conclusion, again it goes to Regulatory Commission, again it takes 1 year, by the time new technology has come. That is the time frame of technology that is changing so fast. So therefore, every technology for the time that it has come is valid. In our own last 20 years of renewable we have seen, and I have given examples of wind when it started. So therefore, timely action by regulatory commissions in the states and also CERC would be of utmost importance. I think definitely from India Energy Forum, whatever is possible by of advocacy with the regulatory commission or with the government, we will try to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shai sir. It's been an excellent debate on energy security, if I can say that, which is very important for the energy transition from fossil to non-fossil fuels, especially using RE technologies. Our grateful thanks are to Shri Ajay Shankar ji and Alok Kumar ji, both former secretaries to the Government of India, and Shri Rajat Saxeria, who is CEO of Green Hydrogen and Battery Energy Storage Systems, Adani New Industries. This, as Shai Sahab mentioned in the beginning, is the second debate. India Energy Forum has taken the initiative of having a monthly debate on an important energy issue. Last time we had on emerging potential for the hydropower in the northeast. This time we have on battery energy storage system. Next month the topic will be decided. Meanwhile, we are going to have one physical conference on renewable energy on 31st of July in Le Méridien, All of you are invited, and the details of that conference are given in the folder which is available with you. And you can inform about your interest to the IEX office or to the convener of renewable energy in India Energy Forum. I would also like to thank all the participants for making the debate very lively and giving their inputs and knowledge on the subject, which was very useful. You may be aware that the Ministry of Power has issued a notification inviting suggestions on proposed amendments in the battery storage system as they appear in the Electricity Act. We would be considering some of the discussions which have taken place today and the suggestions or recommendations made to write to the MOP on that subject also. With these words, I would like to thank all of you for participating in this debate, and participation number, participation level, participation quality has been really very good and encouraging for India Energy Forum to continue these debates on other issues also.
You have to present gift.
Yes, sir. Before I invite you for the high tea, which is at the ground floor level, let us do the onerous task of recognizing and appreciating the efforts made by the speakers. आइए सर।